On Saturday night, the President of the United States drew the clearest red line of this entire war. He posted on Truth Social in all capitals, "If Iran doesn't fully open, without threat, the Strait of Hormuz, within 48 hours from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first." The deadline was set. The world held its breath. Stock markets went into freefall. Oil spiked. Iran threatened to retaliate against every American energy asset in the region. And then hours before that deadline expired, Trump blinked. He postponed the strikes. He said talks were going great. Iran said there were no talks, and the Strait of Hormuz remained closed. This is the story of the 48 hours that exposed something the world needed to see: that the most powerful military on earth is being run by a president who cannot decide what he actually wants. And that Iran, a country being bombed into rubble, just called his bluff and won. This is day 24 of the Iran war. And here is everything you need to know about how we got to this moment. To understand why Trump issued this ultimatum in the first place, you have to go back to Friday, just 24 hours before he posted it. On Friday afternoon, Trump was telling reporters the exact opposite. He said the United States was getting very close to meeting its objectives and that he was considering winding down military efforts in the Middle East. Winding down. Those were his words. He floated the idea of ending the war without even resolving the Strait of Hormuz closure. The same closure that has already pushed oil to over $110 a barrel. The same closure that has raised diesel at American pumps to $5 a gallon for the first time since 2022. The same closure that the International Energy Agency called the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. Less than 24 hours after saying he was considering walking away from all of that, Trump reversed course completely. He issued the most aggressive ultimatum of his presidency: open Hormuz in 48 hours or we destroy your power plants. Starting with the biggest one first. What happened between Friday afternoon and Saturday night? Iran happened. On Saturday, Iran launched a new wave of missile strikes directly at Dimona, the location of Israel's main nuclear research center. Iranian missiles broke through Israeli air defenses and made direct impacts in the cities of Dimona and Arad, wounding nearly 200 people. The IRGC stated publicly that it had targeted military installations in the area. The IAEA confirmed it was aware of a missile impact in Dimona and said there were no current indications of damage to the nuclear research center, but the fact that the word Dimona was being used in the same sentence as Iranian missile strikes was enough. The entire security architecture of the Middle East shifted in one afternoon. And Trump responded the only way Trump knows how. He escalated, publicly, loudly, on Truth Social. Here is the Truth Social post that set the 48-hour clock running. The exact words: "If Iran doesn't fully open, without threat, the Strait of Hormuz, within 48 hours from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first." That was posted at 11:44 at night GMT on Saturday, March 22. The deadline would expire at approximately 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, March 24. Iran's response came within hours. The Iranian army issued a statement that all American energy infrastructure in the region would be targeted if Iran's fuel and energy infrastructure were attacked. Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf went further. Iran's defense council warned that any attack on Iran's coasts or islands would trigger mine-laying across Gulf Sea lanes that could block maritime traffic across the entire Persian Gulf, not just the Strait of Hormuz. And Tehran threatened to hit power plants across the region, water desalination facilities that entire Gulf nations depend on for drinking water, and what Iranian state media described as tourism sites worldwide. In 48 hours, the world had gone from a war about one country to a threat matrix spanning the entire Middle East, its water supply, its electricity grid, and its energy exports. If this breakdown is giving you what the mainstream news isn't, hit subscribe right now and ring the bell. We cover this war in real time with zero fluff. Back to the story. Now here is where it gets complicated. Because while Iran was issuing these threats publicly, something else was happening behind closed doors. Mediators were moving. Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan had been in direct contact with Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. Oman's Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi posted publicly that Oman was working intensively to put safe passage arrangements in place for the Strait of Hormuz. Qatar was in the room. Saudi Arabia was in the room. Pakistan and Egypt were being consulted. And Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy, was reportedly in contact with Iranian officials through third parties. The entire diplomatic architecture of the region was quietly mobilizing to prevent Monday night from becoming the worst night of this war. And then at roughly 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Monday morning, hours before his own deadline, Trump posted on Truth Social again. All caps. He said the United States and Iran have had, over the last 2 days, very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. He said he had instructed the Department of War, he actually called it the Department of War, not Defense, to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period. He said the Strait of Hormuz will be opened very soon if this works. He even suggested it might be jointly controlled by himself and whoever the Ayatollah is, floating the idea of regime change in the same breath as peace talks. Markets exploded. S&P 500 futures jumped 1.6%. Oil tumbled 6.2% in minutes. Brent crude fell from above $110 to below $105 in a single session. Gold and silver pulled back sharply. The financial world exhaled. And then Iran spoke. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghaei issued a statement within the hour. There is no dialogue between Tehran and Washington. A senior Iranian security official went further, calling Trump's announcement psychological warfare, and saying that with this kind of move, neither the Strait of Hormuz will return to its pre-war conditions nor will there be peace in energy markets. Iran's state television network IRIB went further still. It said Trump had postponed his deadline for one reason only: out of fear of Iran's response. Two completely different versions of the same event. Trump says talks are going great and a deal is close. Iran says there are no talks and nothing has changed. One of them is performing for their domestic audience. The question is which one? Here is what the U.S. military said on the same day that Trump was posting about productive conversation. U.S. Central Command Commander Admiral Brad Cooper stated publicly that the Strait of Hormuz is physically open. He argued that ships are staying away not because Iran is blocking them with warships, but because Iran was firing missiles and drones at vessels and the insurance industry had done the rest. No insurer, no transit. The most powerful navy in history cannot force Lloyd's of London to write a policy. But here is what makes Cooper's statement significant. The U.S. military was already saying the strait is physically open. The head of CENTCOM was saying Iran's ability to attack vessels had been degraded after 5,000-pound bombs were dropped on underground coastal facilities storing anti-ship cruise missiles. Yet Trump was threatening to bomb power plants if Iran didn't open a strait that his own military commander said was already physically open. There is a gap between what the White House is saying it wants and what the U.S. military says it has already accomplished. And that gap is the story nobody is telling you clearly enough.